A little bit of quote-unquote insider information I learned while I was at MacMulkin. What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. Each week I'm going to take you with me on my adventures in the world of cars. Let's get right into today's video. While everyone's preoccupied with the reservation mess that I covered in last week's video about the C8 Z06, I want to talk about something a little bit more fun that everybody can relate to, and that's the performance of the car. Also in this video, I'm going to mention two pieces of insider information that I learned while I was at MacMulkin that I haven't seen anybody else mention, so stick around. Alright, so as everyone's aware, the C8 Z06 is going to be quite a car. It's going to have amazing performance, it's going to look really good, and yes, there's a huge mess about everything related to reservations. Check out last week's video if you haven't already. It kind of summarizes the entire mess and where we stand right now, as well as where you might be able to go to get an MSRP reservation for the car. Anyway, I want to take a little time and talk about performance of the car and what that actually means in the real world. So the first stat that I want to cover is the 0 to 60 time that Chevy's announced for the car. They've said that the C8 Z06 with Z07 Performance package will be able to do 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. That is a really, really fast time. Now the C7 Z06 for comparison was able to, with the 8-speed automatic, do 0 to 60 in 2.95 seconds, which was the first time any Corvette had broken the 3-second barrier from the factory completely stock. This car is going to shave about a third of a second off of that, which may not sound like much, but that's a really, really fast time. Think of it this way, 2.6 seconds is the time between now and now. 2.68 I was able to do just sort of trying offhand. So 2.6 seconds to go from completely stationary to 60 miles an hour is very, very fast. The kind of company that the car is keeping with is McLaren's, it's Porsche, it's Lamborghini, it's Bugatti, and obviously the Teslas of the world that 0 to 60 is the only thing they seem to care about. But generally, that is an elite company. And other than the Tesla, which is in the same ballpark price range, this is far and away one of the fastest cars you can buy for less than $100,000. Again, they haven't released the prices yet, but there's a pretty good chance that the base model will be under $100,000. My money is on about $89,000, so we'll see. But this is pretty ridiculous performance right out of the box. Now, when Chevy unveiled this car and they made their kind of production video to bring everybody up to speed on it, they didn't talk about a quarter-mile time. But someone at one of the recent places where you could actually go and see one of the cars saw that there was actually some marketing material, some signage that actually had the quarter-mile time listed on it. And that quarter-mile time was 10.6 seconds. Now again, a C7Z, for a comparison, was able to do it in 10.95, just under that 11-second barrier. They didn't release a trap speed for the C8 Z06, but the C7Z, again for comparison, was able to do it at 127 for their trap speed. Now it's unknown at this point what the trap speed for the C8 Z06 will be, but no matter what, that's a very, very fast time, 10.6. But anyway, talking about quarter-mile times is really kind of missing the point of this car. Certainly you're going to have people who all they care about is drag times, and there's in fact a lot of people who are saying, well, my C7 Z06 is faster, and with a couple mods I can push 1,000 horsepower, and that's fine, and that's great. The C7 Z06 is a rocket in a straight line. But if you put these on a track, you're going to see a dramatic difference between the cars, and we'll get into that. So Chevy said, both in their promotion materials as well as in that video that they made, that the car is really designed to be track focused. And they don't mean racetrack like a drag strip. They actually mean that this is a car that is designed to handle and out-handle a lot of the things that have similar performance, but for a lot more money. So I want to talk for a moment about the Nürburgring. One of the things that's been really interesting is that the late stage testing for the C8 Z06 largely took place on the Nürburgring. There's all sorts of spy videos. Feel free to go look at them on YouTube. There's a lot of great footage. You can really get a sense of the sound of the car. You can see it accelerating. You can see it at full speed. You can really get a sense of what this car can do. But among that comes something pretty interesting, which I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. There's a YouTube channel called Car Spotter Jeroen, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'll link to it in the description. But basically, this car spotter was out at the track watching and saw a bunch of these C8 Z06s testing. Now, they pulled out their phone and they decided, hey, they're going around repeatedly. I'm going to start timing them and just sort of see where we stand. So after watching the cars a little bit, they were able to get a couple different times. Now, apparently they were tracking one of the standard Z06s that didn't have the big tail, didn't have the downforce and kind of carbon parts in the front. They had a time in the 8-minute range, which is not very remarkable. A Range Rover Sport SUV can do it in about that time. But more interestingly, they were able to find one of these Z07 packaged cars doing it in a 7/12/64. That is a much more significant number. Let me put some context around this for you. So I did some looking on the internet, and the fastest time I could find for the C7 Z06 was driven by a guy named Jim Miro, and he was able to do the Nürburgring in 7 minutes and 10 seconds. 7 minutes, 10 seconds is a pretty fast time. That's in company of top spec Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari. That's a fast time. This is where the C8 Z06's 7:12, which, was impromptu with a guy timing with his cell phone, is a lot more interesting. So there are a couple things that are going to play into this, which is going to start building a picture for you. The first thing is that this was not filmed during a closed track for Chevy specifically to go out and set a time. This was actually during kind of their product testing. There were 2 people in the car. It was open public lapping, so there was heavy traffic on the track. If you watch the video, you'll see all sorts of cars that the Z06s had to go around, which are always going to contribute to a slower time. And while these were fast laps, I didn't get the impression just from watching it that they were pushing the car at 10/10. They were certainly going fast. They had helmets on, but the 2 people in the car were likely doing telemetry and kind of final shakedown runs for the car as part of their kind of production testing as they get ready to release the car and start figuring out kind of the final tuning. So they weren't trying for the record. They had a bunch of weight penalties, probably with other testing equipment as well as the people in the car. And I should say that the timer on the phone is not a super exact thing. It wasn't the transponders that you would normally have that are automatic at exactly the right point in the same place every time. This was a person with their cell phone. So that introduces a lot of error. Add that in with the fact that there was a fair amount of traffic on the track, and that is leaving a significant amount of performance and a lower time on the table. Now, I'll put a couple other cars' numbers up on the screen so you can see, but essentially this Corvette is in a very elite class, and there are a lot of cars that cost 2, 3, 4 times as much that are putting down similar times. You're going to see McLarens on the list, you're going to see Porsche, there's even some Ferraris up there, and then there's the Chevy Corvette, which that's pretty amazing to me that for relatively affordable price range, comparatively, you're going to end up with lap times like that. Now, here's a couple of my takeaways. First is that this car, with a dedicated racing driver, without a second person, with a closed track so that they can go out and actually have good dry conditions, fresh tires, and be trying for a record, there's a lot left in this car that we're not seeing yet, and I think that's going to be pretty exciting. Now, for comparison's sake, the new 911 GT3 was able to do a 655 on the same track, and for perspective, the Corvette is lower, wider, probably has a lower coefficient of drag, and makes more power. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the Porsche can do it just under that 7-minute mark. I think the odds are pretty good that the Z06 is not only going to be able to hit that 655, I'm thinking like 652, 650, maybe into the 640s. Now, a lot of that may sound a little bit fanciful, and by all means, this is just a guess on my part, but judging from everything we've learned about the car, think back about a month ago when they first unveiled it. In the Corvette, people weren't saying that it was going to have just shy of 700 horsepower. They were saying like low 600s, and Chevy completely exceeded expectations with that. On top of it, the fact that we now have 345s in the back, giving you a much wider contact patch, and that the car is doing everything they can to save weight with all the carbon and the added downforce, I think this car is going to put down a serious time. And so I don't feel that it's unreasonable to think that the car is going to not only best the GT3, which is one of my favorite cars of all time, but probably come in significantly under that. All right, and the last thing I wanted to cover is a little bit of quote-unquote insider information I learned while I was at MacMulkin. Now, let me preface this by saying it's not official, it's not announced, it's not something that is confirmed. I've seen a couple YouTubers in the past week say that the price of the car is confirmed, and it really hasn't been. 2 dealers doesn't make this confirmed. But what I will share is that MacMulkin, while I was there, said that there are 2 unannounced colors that they've heard are being considered for release for the 2023 C8 Corvettes. Those 2 colors are going to be green and purple. Now, you may recall that near the end of C7 production, right before the ZR1 came out, before the C8, Chevy took some time and built a brand new paint shop at the manufacturing plant. So they certainly have the capability to add some additional interesting colors and go with some higher quality paints than maybe they've had in the past. And as a fan of purple in general, I always enjoyed the Black Rose metallic color that the C7 came in for. I think it was only 1 year. And the McLaren with the Lantana purple. I'm really excited. I'm hoping for a deep, kind of bold, vibrant purple if they decide to make that. And as far as the green, I mean, some sort of like metallic lizard green, almost like some of the older Vipers came in, would be really, really cool. And I think, combine the big rear wing, some of that carbon for the aero, and maybe the drop top with a hardtop convertible, I think that's going to be an awesome looking car and really kind of elevate this car a little bit and make it look like the supercar that it now is. So that's what I heard. I heard it directly from MacMulkin. Again, they did say that none of it was confirmed and that they don't know for sure if that's going to happen. But I'm excited just to hear that that's even a possibility, and so we'll see if that actually comes to being. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to be doing a lot more C8 content as I wait for both my reservation, which is probably a couple years out, as well as more data and info is released about the car. I'm going to be covering it and kind of cutting through all the crap and speculation and trying to find the things that are either accurate and backed up with data or announcements, or doing some analysis and kind of observation on my own to form my conclusions and share what my thoughts are. If you enjoyed this, please consider a like or a subscribe. That really helps me as a small YouTuber, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, Fred out!